Hi, this is Pierre Delacote working at Planet Technology. So let's talk about digital etiquette today. What is an etiquette? Basically, an etiquette is a way to align people on how they're going to work together. It's more about a code of conduct um, within the community. It's not only about how you use the technology to be aligned, but also some social behavior recommendations. It shouldn't be enforced. Um, it should be really promoted as best practices to follow and to be better aligned. And usually we have that within the enterprise or any organization around whatever subject, and but it also applies to digital. So the scope of this digital etiquette is not going to be about all the digital environment, but we're going to focus on email, chat, channel conversation, meeting, and print because they're really topics that have to be addressed. So email, you probably already have something around email. Email really is a pain today. Email, you need to consider email as noise. We buried around under emails every day. Um, I don't remember the latest statistics, but I think it's around 165 on average. People receive 165 email per day, certainly from managers. So, but let's just take a pessimistic number. If you receive 100 email per day, then that means you have an interruption every 5 to 6 minutes, depending on how long you work. So it's a nightmare. You cannot manage that. It's impossible to manage it. So you're gonna lose track. Probably gonna be stressed about the amount of email. You're gonna zap some emails, um, and you need to know also that this is addictive. So not only you feel overwhelmed, but your body is saying, "Give me more." Um, so it's really it needs some guidance here. So let's dig into these recommendations. In the ideal world, you should use email only for communication with external contacts. That's an ideal world. Um, and when you're about to send an email, think, ask you this question: Is this email um, is conversational around with a few people, so maybe it could be eligible for a chat or a group chat, or could it be in a Teams channel because it's not just a group that is impromptu discussion. It's more focused on a topic, on a project. So maybe there's a team there that where you can start this discussion or share this information. So then, um, if you're the sender, you can post rather than sending an email. You can post a message in the channel, in the appropriate channel, in the appropriate team. If you're the receiver and you think that this email or this email thread should be in a Teams environment so people can see it, not only the receiver in the email, but everybody in the team could see the email and chat about it. And if you don't want to pollute your inbox with so many emails, then you can forward the email to the channel, because you can have an email address for every channel. So you can send an email to the channel, so then you can engage more in the channel, and even without losing the context of the first email. In general, I will suggest not and avoid to use CC or for your information um, in email, because CC, what if I receive an email and I'm in carbon copy, what does it mean for me? Do you have any action? Um, so even reading the email is an action. So you should be in the to destination uh, in the email, so you know that you have something to do about the email. And for your information, the same thing. And I think a lot of times forwarding an email for your information without any instructions is really confusing. Should I read it? Is it because it's my manager I need to read it? What do I do with what I read? So um, try not to use CC and FYI, and ban BCC, because it's a lack of transparency. There might be some exceptions, like you want to inform people, but you don't want a reply or answer. But even then, there are other ways to handle that, especially when you send an email to everybody in the corporation. You can block people to send back to all, and because you can control the distribution list, who can send an email to the distribution list. So don't use really BCC. It's not transparent. It's not very engaging, and people are not aware who's receiving the information. So it's not really good to foster trust within the organization. You need to read through your email before sending it. A lot of time we sending email without really rereading the email, so there might be a lot of mistakes. Uh, might be confusing for the reader, uh, and it's your image when you're sending an email with a lot of spell check errors. What does it say about you? So, and also you can be emotional about email, especially when you go fast writing your email. So sometimes it's better to take a deep breath, wait a little bit before sending an email. And you feel secure when you send an email because it's only between you and a few people. Um, but it's misinterpreted a lot of time. So it's not transparent, and transparency leads to better behaviors in general. So once again, try not to use email, but if you're using email for whatever reason, um, be polite and check what you wrote before sending it. And try to write your email as if you were the receiver, and see if you were the receiver, how you will interpret the email. A very important advice is to turn off email notifications. Email notifications, the pop-up window that comes every time you receive an email, um, distracts distracts you. And some studies show that it distracts you 45 seconds. So if you receive 100 emails per day, that's a huge loss of time for nothing. And it triggers dopamine in your body, so you feel probably addicted to receiving email, and you want to answer fast because then you feel you save the world answering so fast. But it's not, it's fake. You have a fake feeling. So I really encourage everybody to turn off the notification if you didn't do that already. And email is not urgent. It's not a way to communicate urgently. So, um, when you send an email and you're expecting an answer right away, you're probably not using the right tool, and you probably don't have the right behavior, unless you don't have any other tool. But it's not made for that. It's asynchronous. It's not for urgent matters. So use chat or call the person if you want, if it's really urgent. And finally, follow compliance rules or safety rules. So if you work in healthcare, don't share patient data. If you work in finance, don't share financial data, and etc. Don't share sensitive information. Don't share personal information. In general, that's the recommendations about emails. So what about chat? Um, so when should you use chat? For me, you use chat for impromptu internal communications. Uh, you have to discuss a topic quickly, then use a chat. But even if it's a synchronous tool, sometimes the people who are receiving the notification that you're chatting with them, they're doing something else. Even if their status is available, they might do something more important. They might not have changed their status because they were focusing on doing something else. So don't be too demanding on the fact that people answer right away your chat. There are some situations where they can't. Uh, so be patient about that. And if you really um, think it's really urgent, it's an emergency, you can use the urgent notification that will ping the person for several times for a period of time until the person answers, or call. That's still the best way to reach somebody uh, in a emergency situation. Um, in general, try to respect the present status. So either the person is available or away, busy, and you can also sometimes see other um, status like presenting in a call, in a meeting. So check that before. Um, that means it doesn't mean that if the person is busy, you cannot send him a message or send her a message. Um, it's just first to be polite with the person, saying, "I know you're busy right now, but I just uh, shooting you this message for when you're become available, and if you could answer this question, that will be fantastic." So just be respectful about the present status. Either you wait for the person to be available, so you can tag the person to see when the person is coming back to be available, or you can just uh, wording the questions correctly. You can set the expectation. Politeness is key, so it's always better to start a chat with "Hello, can I? Are you not busy?" Even if the person is available, can I ask you a question and so on. Um, and and then chat is really not verbose. It's about a simple conversation. Um, so it's made to back and forth discussion about a topic or about something. And when you have too many chats with the same person, at one point you need to ask yourself, should I call this person because I need to give more details. Obviously, if I was not able to make my point just chatting, I need to escalate to an audio call to give more details. Um, you can chat with a group of people And if you know that you're gonna chat with the same people maybe several times, then you can name the group chat, so you can find the group name more easily, and then you can reuse that, and they will. When you go back to the group chat, you will see what have been said prior to the latest chat. So it can be very useful. In some cases, you can use a group chat because you don't have a team. For that, it's an impromptu group chat. Um, but if at one point you can see that it's becoming more and more important, it's gonna it might need a teams uh, to really track all not only the chats but a lot of things like sharing documents and other things. One thing to know is you can chat with people when they're offline. If you don't want to forget about asking a question to somebody and not using email, you can chat with this person. She will receive a notification when she come back, or she will receive an email saying there's a notification that is waiting for her in the Teams environment. So you can do that too. And finally, also be compliant when you chat. It's the same thing for all the tools. So channel conversation. So conversation is about chatting in a channel. Um, so not only that, but it's what kind of interaction you have in the channel. So first, I will set some recommendations for everybody who's part of the team, so team members, whoever they are. Um, it's really when you have to discuss about a subject that is part of a team, then really use this feature. It's called post. It was called conversation before, but it's in the post tab in the channel. So first, you need to treat everyone equally. There's no when you're talking about transparency, people need to feel safe. So you need to forget about the title of the people you're talking with because you're chatting with, because if there's some concern about what they're saying because they know that they're a manager in the group, then they won't talk freely. So it's better to treat everybody equally. Uh, Politeness is not a rule. You don't chat in the team environments starting with hi. Uh, can I ask this question and so on. It's a convention, but respect is you still need to be polite, but respect is really the rule. Um, to foster trust. Transparency is another rule. Everybody, everyone needs to understand that everything that is in the team is visible to any member. Um, so you need to be aware of that. You need to also to understand that everybody almost has the same permissions. There's two exceptions. The guest cannot do everything, and the owner can do a little bit more. But in general, the permissions are the same. So, for example, everybody can modify a document. There are some conventions that are really important for people to understand. If, for example, when they post something, if people notice what they they posted. So the first convention is to like the post. When you like a post, it doesn't mean you like what has been written, but it means I acknowledge the fact that I read this post. And if you want to be sure, some people in the team will get notified because you want to be sure they will see your post. You can add mention uh, these people, but try not to over add mention people because then they will receive notifications all the time. They will feel the same that receiving emails. It will be submissive. So they try to not add mention same people all over. Let them decide if it's important or not. When you really think it's really important, you can add mention these people. You can also add mention uh, several uh, There are several ways to add mention. The first way is to add mention a person. Second way is to add mention a channel. So people who are following the channel will receive a notification. You can add mention a team. So every team's every team's member will receive a notification. And you can also create what we call tags. Um, and so a tag is a group of persons. So you can create a tag, let's say project managers, and you put the list of project managers individually in this tag. And when you add mention the tag, then only the project managers will receive the the notification. But don't overuse add mention. It's only when it's you feel it's really important and you want people to notice that you post something. Um, what is really important um, is that people feel enough safe to share uh, their ideas, their feedback, to ask questions freely without feeling to be judged. Because sometimes you feel you're the only one who have this question. You feel a bit stupid about asking the question, but you find out that all the team members have the same question. And especially when you're not in the same room and in the same office, sometimes you don't have this interaction. So you need to feel safe to ask this question, because not only mem- other might have this same question, but maybe they don't have this question because they didn't think through that, but they might be interested in the answer. So make people feel safe. Uh, uh, Let them encourage them to engage and not to be shy, to share questions, ideas, initiatives, whatever. Of course, don't be verbose. You don't want to use Teams to be a new email environment. Messages usually are short, except for announcement or important informations that you want to summarize from time to time. But in general, it's short messages. Um, it can be really, even for end user, you can poll. If you It's a way to engage with other people. You have an idea, you want to poll people to see if the members, to see if what they think, and still same thing, be compliant. For the people who are animating the teams, let's say the owners, um, there are same recommendations. Make people safe, make sure people feel safe, try to engage as an owner with every member, so you have their feedback. Use announcement to create awareness. For example, if you're working on a project, who communicate about the milestones. Um, Make them understand that everybody in the team, and especially you should start your teams with teams of conduct, explaining that here are the rules, our governance rules, our best practice rule in this team, how the team is organized, how you should use team. Be aware that everybody can delete a document, so be aware of what you're doing. So create the awareness. The owner is there to create awareness, and also the owner is sometimes is responsible to capture what's not compliant with the rules you want to promote. Like if you see that there are still email going on around the subject, you can forward the email to the teams, um, so people can see that it's the best way to communicate because it's more transparent. Everybody has access to it and can have discussion without polluting the inbox. From time to time, you can praise people when you feel they. It's a matter of culture, but it's always good to praise people for ideas, for their storytelling, for their achievements, whatever, and give some visibility into the team to, to foster the will to share more and increase the knowledge of everybody. If everybody gives uh, his or her ideas in transparent environment, it's better than if nobody is communicating. You can use stickers, GIFs, memes to make things more comfortable for people, more laid back, so they feel more engaged. You don't overuse it. Use it appropriately. Um, Also, you can use it for fun. It's always better if people feel there's a little bit of fun in the team. The best way to share an idea is to add some fun to the context of the conversation. As a owner, you should quiz regularly or poll regularly your team to know if everything is okay about the team, and it's also a way to engage. For example, I will give an example that I use when I do change management project. When we need to define the name of the project, find a project name, and then find a project logo when you have the name. I used to do a poll, first asking, not a poll, first asking ideas about the name, and then poll about the name that came to this post. Respect the result of the poll, and then we can find what's the best name, and then we can do the same thing about the logo. What kind of logo you want, and have several logos proposed, and decide which one is going to be better. And same thing, you poll and you respect the results of the poll. A very important task for team's owner is from time to time to synthesize what have been said in the teams, what is really important. And sometimes it's after a while, a team is really big, can be with a lot of conversation, with a lot of documents, a lot of folders, maybe tabs, maybe notebooks. So it's a good idea to create a OneNote where you're gonna explain, or you can even shoot a video to explain how to use a team. The OneNote is better because you can change it, especially if the team is more and more engaging and with more and more content, you can revise your OneNote notebook. So I will recommend you from time to time, maybe every month, to re-explain how the team is working. And also another important task for team's owner is to curate the content. When people ask a question, be sure that they have an answer. It might not be you as the answer, but try to mention the person who could answer the question that has been asked if it was not answered. It's a way to connect people with the right team member on the subject, and that way you also show who might have the information. And finally, measure what I'm using to do I'm used to do is to from time to time share the analytics. In Teams, you have analytics. You can see how many posts were there, how many reply, how many mention, um the last week or maybe the last month, and you can see if there are a lot of activities or not, and people need to be aware if the team is working well or not, and also to understand sharing analytics shows that if they had done their email, they were they will be buried around email here, and they will feel with the analytics that they have big advantage in using Teams. So let's talk also about meetings. Some recommendations for everyone who is part of a meeting. So prior to the meeting, be sure you can talk in a quiet environment. Um, and for a good example, even if you feel quiet and you have your smartphone just near you, um, put your smartphone on silent mode, so you won't have a call during the meetings and everybody will hear the call. That's not really respectful for other people, and it will be disturbing for you. So try to make it possible, if it's possible, to prepare your environment to be quiet. Um, Another really high recommendation, I know it's not always the case, but if you have an headset, use your headset. So because headset first, it covers the noise, external noise in general. It's better. You don't have echo if you don't have good computer. Sometimes there's echo, so don't. I will recommend if you even if you don't you feel like a little bit weird with headsets on, but I know some people don't like to have headsets because the way they look. But really, it's really first it's more comfortable. You will hear better, and people will hear you better. There won't be echo. It's way more beneficial. If you're in a noisy environment, so you can't really hear, you don't have headsets, for example. No, if you're not in a noisy environment, if you don't have headsets, um, and but you you want to be able, and yes, there's noise. Sorry for the confusion, and there's noise around you, but you still want to hear what's going on. If if there's too much noise, you won't be able to hear. So turn on the live caption, so you can at least read who's saying what. The live caption is really good. It can help you if you're surrounded with I don't know, you're in a hall or wherever you are. It's not very easy for you to listen to what is said during the meeting. Turn on the live caption. When you're turning on your camera, check the light. Avoid to have backlight, and a lot of time you don't realize that if you have backlight, people will see you in black and they won't see your face correctly. Um, it's a good practice to turn on the camera because first of all, it's a better way to engage with people in the meeting because it's more human. Uh, it's basic, but it's how it is. Some studies show that it's really more engaging when you turn on your camera. There can be camera fatigue, but in general, it's really way more engaging, and it avoids you to multitask, um, and that's what you should do when you're in a face-to-face meeting. You should not multitask. So why would you do that during a Teams meeting? That means to me that means if you're ready to multitask, that means you really don't need to be there. That means you can access to the recording later if you really want to know what has been said. But if you solicited during a meeting, that means you need to be focused on meeting. You cannot multitask. Might also mean that the meeting is too long and you have to wait to the end of the meeting to talk. So there's something to think through about how you organize and manage your meetings if you have this feeling. Um, so sometimes you need to turn off your camera, but also to turn off the incoming video because your bandwidth is not very good. Your internet connection is not working that day, or your Wi-Fi is a little bit weak. So if you feel that there's some lag when you're receiving videos, turn off the incoming videos, turn off your camera, and explain why you're doing that. In general, the good convention is to mute yourself if you're not talking. Um, you cannot imagine. I've been in a lot of meetings lately, and there's always some glitches. And sometimes it's okay. It's we understand that you can have a disruption working from home, but sometimes it's really not appropriate. So there are some behaviors that are really not appropriate, and people forget about turning off their mic. They might not know that their mic is still on. So mute yourself, and if you're the organizer, tell the people to mute themselves. Um, to avoid distraction on where you're working, use either the blur your background feature or use a background image in your team so people are not distracted with what's in the back of your room, and also for privacy reason. The good convention, if you're a lot of people, let's say over 6 people, raise your hand before asking a question, before talking, so people can be aware that you want to chime in. Avoid to share your entire screen if you asked to do that, because then you won't see what's been said in the chat. You won't see people faces if they turned on their camera. So there are a lot of drawbacks, and potentially they'll see any notification that comes into not Teams notification, but other notification like email, like Facebook, if Facebook on whatever notification you receive. So it's a good practice to try. It's not always possible, but in general, try to avoid to share your entire screen. Chat in the chat pane to ask non-urgent question, or if you have to share a link to internet web page, intranet web page, or whatever, and still be compliant. For the organizer, you need to prepare the meeting with the right agenda for sure. I explained before, prior to the meeting, what's going to be said during the meeting. Sometimes we come to a meeting, we don't know why we're here, and we don't know what is the subject. So it's a good practice to tell people what's going to be like, and manage meeting options depending if you're having a large meeting and you want to control when people come to the meeting. You can make them wait into the lobby room. So click on the meeting option when you plan the meeting. You can also define who's going to present, so who's going to be able to share his screen or not. So if you have external people, external contacts that are joining the meeting, tell everybody that, there's no surprise that there's somebody outside of the organization you're working with. Sometimes it's very useful to record the meetings, but you need to ask the permission to record the meeting. There might be some privacy issues, so it's important to ask the question. And sometimes either you decide to not record or to ask people feel the need to leave the meeting, to leave the meeting. Mute all uh, the attendees uh, to avoid when there are a lot, especially when there are a lot of people, to avoid, you know, a lot of noise, unexpected noises. So mute them all, and they can unmute themselves. There will be a new feature soon where you can force people not to be able to unmute themselves. Only the organizer will be able to unmute the people. So it's really useful, for example, for teachers. Um, Check the chat pane for questions. So it's pretty hard when you're presenting and you're the only one who's presenting to manage your screen and the chat. But if you have a chance to look at the chat, and even if it's better if you have somebody who can help you to monitor the chat and also to take notes, especially when you're a large meeting, that's good practice to have somebody else to help you to manage a meeting. Um, you can now poll during a meeting, so it's good from time to time to poll people in between transition in your presentation. Um, be aware that there are some glitches when you do that with guest people. Um, so do that in internal meetings. It's better to use this feature. I hope Microsoft will fix this, but yeah, be aware that with guest access, guest users, that might be not working all the time. So same recommendation about not sharing your full screen. Share a PowerPoint deck over sharing the PowerPoint app, because when you're sharing the PowerPoint app, then you won't see anything else. When you're sharing the PowerPoint deck, then you will see your environment. And it's also a way to give the ability to somebody else to talk over your slides, and they can click to the next slide. They can take control of the slide deck and click to the next slide without you having to click for them. Ask people to use the together mode. So it's a view of all the people in the meeting in an amphitheater. Soon you will have a choice of different background for the amphitheater. So it detours everybody and put them seated in the amphitheater, and it's really, really more engaging. You can see everybody at once, and it's a better see than the large gallery view. Um, Also use, if possible, especially when a big crew, use an icebreaker to start a meeting that has nothing to do with the meeting. So it can be a small talk about, you know, whatever you have in mind, but you have other way to use an icebreaker. For example, I do some physical exercise using the together mode. I ask people to high five together, um, and it's fun. It's just make people first move a little bit, because we are working from home and we don't move a lot. And second, use this feature that is really nice. In your small group, try to engage with everyone, so people don't come to the meeting and not talk at all. That's, to me, that's awkward if people are attending a meeting with a small amount of people and don't talk. Why are they there then? Uh, and if you can, give 3 to 5 minutes before the real start, and so people can come from their previous meeting. They can have a bio break and do the same thing. Try to finish 3 to 5 minutes prior to the end of the meeting, so people can get ready to the next meeting and have a little break. Because when you have back-to-back meetings all day, it can be really crazy, and and that's why you often see people getting late to a meeting, because they need the break. They need a bio break at least, and they need also to get their mind somewhere else than in a team meeting, that's for sure. And this, we've seen a lot of teams fatigue due to the COVID and remote work. So yeah, it's a good practice to give back a few minutes to people so they get, you know, organized or they have a break. And finally, last point I want to talk about is the print. We we I it's amazing to see that we still print a lot. Um, and when you think about it, everything you print, everything you print is digital. So why do we print it? I think we need to look at why we originally printed documents. It's because the paper, we can carry the paper, we can carry the sheet of paper everywhere we want. We can annotate the sheet of paper. We can show the sheet of paper to somebody. So it was really, I think it was for uh, to be mobile, to be able to transport the information. But whatever it is, it's a PDF, it's an image, it's a PowerPoint, it's a Word document, it's an email, whatever it is, if you print it, it's digital because it comes from the computer, basically. So what it means is you can really easily print. Still, you feel you need to print to carry this information somewhere. Change it, change it a little bit. Print it to OneNote, and OneNote is mobile. You can have OneNote on your smartphone, your iPhone, iPad, on your computer, in the browser. You can share it. So print it to OneNote, and when you go into your printer, when you start to print, look at the list of printer, and there should be somewhere the OneNote listed. And print it to the OneNote. Try to find a section where you can print this printout, and it will print your document in the OneNote as a printout, and it's going to be an image, and then you can, you know, you can write over it. You can search even if there's some text and you're concerned on not being able to search the text. OneNote is enough smart to look at text into the image, and when you search for a word, it will highlight in the image where the word is. So it's pretty powerful. It avoids you to carry around with a folder with a lot of piece of papers. You can have everything under your control, under your in your pocket, on a smartphone or at your desktop. If you're sitting at your desktop, it's very mobile, and you can share it. You can share your notes with anybody in Teams or in SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever. So it's really powerful, and this really, I know it's a change for some people uh, in the way they work. I know that a lot of people like to have papers. They feel more comfortable with it. But when you think about it, try to do it in in OneNote, and you'll see that there are a lot of benefits. I still use paper to take notes um, because to me, when I'm presenting, for example, I use a notepad on the side with a pencil and write it down because I cannot multitask on my computer. So paper is not dead for everything, but most of the time you can do everything printing in OneNote. That was the last advice um, to save the trees um, and part of the digital etiquette. But as you can see, the digital etiquette is a set of how to use the tools and also how to behave with the tools so you're better aligned with your colleagues, especially when you collaborate, but also for personal benefits because it's not only about alignment, it's also a better uh, you know a better way to manage information on a personal standpoint and on the team standpoint, and also um, uh, uh, it's a better alignment within the organization. The more people are using the same standards, same way, even one size doesn't fit all. We know that there will be some people who are still working differently, and it's okay. Um, but you know, showing a good way to do things is better than not saying anything. And you will see that some people will start to align, and you'll see that um, they work, they will work faster, better. They will feel more comfortable, more autonomous. They will bring more value, and like the bell curve shows us, when you have a critical mass of people doing something in the same way, the rest will follow. Um, because that's how the nature of people is. They follow if some people are following, if there's enough people who are doing the same thing. So I hope it was useful, and digital etiquette is really key to better align a whole organization to try to go in the same direction.